Okay.
You get the message of recording?
Yes. Okay. I'd just like to add something. If you recall, in the mitzvah of Lecho, we had this problem that the Ram clearly says that in the mitzvah in the Ashara, that Darkei Sholem is part of the he says clearly that all those mentioned in the Sefer Halacha are part of the Isa, and the Ma'amukimis that he gives in terms of where you find Duchos is basically it's quoting the Gemara's that quote Darkei Mori. We pointed out the problem that there's no mention of Darkei Mori in Mishnah Torah when it comes to Duchos Lecho. So I just wanted to add another piece to the puzzle. Not that it, let's say, it helps me understand things. Maybe it confuses it, but it certainly gives some insight into the Ram's approach to Duchos Lecho and Darkei Mori. The Ram in the Buchim, Chelek Gimel, Perek Lamed Zayin, Hine Hisboy Lecho, Atom Ma'ayin, Lov Mekivne Torah, Leoise Protei HaKlolos VaBlochos, HaNichlos Divrei HaBris V'Yichdom Mizulos. Okay, that is referring to Machashef, which we'll talk about in Mitzvah Hashem, when it comes to time, really neder. V'da shir zois ha'to'eles ha'gedoyle gamkein u'lahachik mikol ma'isa kishuv. He's here me'asois dover michukiseim. V'chukiseim lo yiselechu is ki'ilu gzeira deraisa ha'choka from kishuv. V'afil b'ma shenitlu b'maise ho'avoida u'kietz behen. V'tzalei b'ma sheyoyma shuhu moel mima shelo yigzo oisel ho'iyun ha'tivi. It's moel, but it's more like a schooler. You cannot explain naturally how it works. Avol noeg lefi daitem kiminig haskulos va'koiches ha'miuchodos v'omo yisale b'chukuseim lo yisalechu. The Darkei Mori are these scholars which are chokah from Kishuv, because they don't work for derech hateva. B'nei shehem sifei ma'isa machashim. Shofim work shlik derech hateva, and any scholar which look at derech hateva is a chokah from the Isa of Kishuv. Shehem dvorim lo yigozum yigzrom hekesh tivi. You can't explain it as a natural phenomenon. Achem moishchim l'maisa Kishuv ashehem nismochim li'inyonei ha'kochovim be'echaf. And this will bring b'chukiseim lo yisalecho b'Darkei Mori will bring to Kishuv, which is related to Avodah Zarah and Kochovim. V'izgago ha'inyin lahagdil Kochovim u'la'ovdom u'la'immo. So it's very clear that Kol Sheyesh Bo Mishum Refuah Ein Bo Mishum Darkei Mori. We understand it very well. And the chefs of love of Duchos Lecho, according to the Meira, is a chokem Avodah Zarah, which because Kishuv, the Ram says in a different place in he says there in Perek Lamed Zayin before that Kishuv is a type of Avodah Zarah, and the Kishuv is to be the Kochovim l'shanos hashpos hakochav. shalei kederech hateva, and that it should go shalei kederech hateva. And schools are in that path, and it's achokut. And we pointed out the oddity is the Rambam does not mention, as I mentioned before, Dalkei Murray in Mishnah Torah at all in terms of the Isa B'chusei. We pointed out it might be in other places he says it, or he says things which are mentioned in Dalkei Murray in other places, but not in B'chusei, which I think is very odd. Next. Now, I want to go back and maybe retract some of the things I said last week, maybe fix them a little bit, but what can I tell you? I can't say that I knew much about Mo'inen and Koisem and whatever. I think I know something. So let's start this again. The thrust, if you read the Rambam over here, you'll find there's no relationship, or you would say, that Koisem works with Derech HaTeva, and there's no relationship at all to Avodah Zarah. However, in Pirush HaMishnah, he says that Tzava v'heimo amim asher yotze me'Avrom Avinu michlolam v'chol gedeseim anivsodos mashe okay v'hoyu megadlim es hakochovim u'meyachsem lehem pulos she'en lehem. They gave them powers. V'heim asher yisdu es gezeres hakochovim v'akishu v'alochoshim v'lodes ha'uchnios v'sichos hakochovim v'ashedim v'akesem v'anichush l'chol mineim v'gush ha'mesim gamel unyonim asher shelefi ha'Torah u'hamitis chov aleim v'koso isom v'heim shoresh avodah zarah v'anf. So it means that there's a relationship between ksomim, kesem, all the other things also, and avodah zarah. V'heim shoresh avodah zarah v'anfo. And this is the tzavo who were mechadish this whole idea of kochovim, and that they actually appear in this world. They put it together with astrology, kochovim v'akishu v'alochoshim v'kochovim v'kesem v'anichush. And then, l'cheira, what the Ram says in Chelek Gimel in the Nevuchim, Perek Lamed Zayin, HaMitzvah she'kolal oisam ha'kar sheni, heim HaMitzvah she'sofalnu b'chus avodah zarah, u'mevuhu she'heim kulam lahatzil mitos avodah zarah u'meideis acheres bilti amitios is galgulu im avodah zarah himoinen umenachesh umachashe v'chol v'chover v'shel oiv v'zulasim menakat shalem. So clearly there's a relationship with avodah zarah, and also in Pirush Mishnayos. And the way he presents it, l'cheira in Sefer HaMitzvos, is some natural way of activating or catalyzing the activation of the intuitive or the intuitive sense or the imagination. So, l'cheira, what you have to say, I think we mentioned last week, that l'cheira, there's no relationship between the kesem and the avodah zarah, but the avodah zarah were miyachdim, were miyaches, the way that the kesem works is through the kochavim. And that's what he means when he says, "Veheim asher yisdu letzava es gzeres hakochavim vekesem v'chulei." And now, here is where I wanted to part what I said last week. And what I said last week I thought was good, but I came across a line in a letter the Rambam wrote, which completely baffled me, and I will share it with you. The Rambam writes in his letter about Gzeirus HaKochovim, about astrology, he says that you should know that I said in Mishnah Torah that Gzeirus HaKochovim, which is astrology, who ika avodah zarah. I'll read it to you. There's a quote from the Rambam, and the Rambam wrote this in Hebrew. So it's not, there's no question about the translation. Lefi shemotzu svorim rabim be'elu advorim shel divrei hachizim b'kochovim shedvorim elu hein ika avodah zarah. Astrology is ika avodah zarah. Okay, you can make such a statement. He says, "Kmo shebialnu behilchos avodah zarah." So I said to myself, "Rebbeinu Shalom, you see, what I was trying to do last week is trying to say that Pirush Mishnah is, he says that Ma'onein, Gzeres Ksovim, Kochovim, B'chulei, are all Ma'onein, Kaisem, whatever, all Ika or Sheirish Avodah Zarah. I said in Mishnah Torah, there seems to be no remnant of that. And that's why I left it. But the Rambam, in his letter, says just the opposite. He says that shel divrei achizim b'kochovim shedvorim elu hein ika avodah zarah k'mo shebe'ana b'hilchos avodah zarah. So he says, he's told them, I said in Mishnah Torah. So, so I started looking. I said to myself, ika avodah zarah, whatever. So it is true that the Ram says in Perik Beis of Hilchos Avodah Zarah Aloha Aleph, Ika hatzivui ba'avodas zarah שלא יעבוד אחד מן הברואים, לא מלך, ולא גלגל, ולא כוכב, ולא אחד מארבע יסודות, ולא אחד מכל הנברואים מהם. ואף על פי שאוהב יודע שהשם הוא אלוקים, והוא אוהב הנברא הזה, על דרך שעובד אנוש ואנשי דורי, תחילה, הרי זה אוהב עבודה זרה. ועניין זה, הוא שציל על התורה, פנטיסו עיניך השמיימו, בריס השמש, ואשר חולק, וישם להם וכולי. תראה שאלו המנהיגים את העולם, והם חולק השם וישם וכולי. So it means, ותאמר שרואי להשתחווה ישראל עליו. Okay, so that is the Avodah Zarah. But how do we know that it has to do with how do we know that the Avodah Zarah extends to Zeus Kessovim, Kochovim, Oinein, Moinein, Mechashem, Koisem, Rishamesim. So I thought that there might be a word which is a clue to it, okay? And let me say it like this. The Ram says in Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Tezayin, Dvorim elu kulim divrei sheker v'chozavein, whether it's Moinein or the Kaisein, whatever. Veheim shehitu bohen oivdei avodah zara hakadmoinim l'goyei ha'alotzos kedei sheyinu achrein. So I focused last time on the fact that they wanted to be mat to them, that there should be avodah zara, and somehow there's a relationship between this and avodah zara. Why does the Ram say hakadmoinim? Why is that important for us? So, what I would suggest is the Ram is saying that the Torah Rishon, which was in Dor Enosh, which the Ika Avodah Zarah, is not only that, but the Kadmoinim also were responsible. And they said, oh, that's also B'chal Avodah Zarah. So then you can imagine, if what I'm saying is correct, I'm off my raka, that this is what the Rambam means, that since he was medaktek to say Kadmoinim, that in the original, the Dvorim Elu Heinika Avodah Zarah, that in the original Torah of Avodah Zarah was not only Nichlal, Dor Enosh, and that they have certain powers, but that the idea that Kesem and Mo'enein are kosher to this. And this already was known at the time of the Kadmonim. So this is part of the Torah. Shohituetz then was in the original Avodah Zarah, the Ik Avodah Zarah. So it is true that it was mater, but the purpose was to miyaseh the Ik Avodah Zarah. And that's the Sheyizdu. And that's what the Rambam means in Pirush HaMishnayis, in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, v'heima sheyistu es gezeres hakochovim v'akishim l'choshim chol mineim l'shamesim v'heim shoyrish Avodah Zarah v'anfo. So maybe it's all the same. And what I said then last week was foolish and ridiculous. But then, everything fits in. There's no stealing Rambam, and everything is beseder if that's the case. And then I said, if you're ready to say that, then maybe that the Rambam says Avo Bali Achochmo in Hilchos Avodah Zarah Agoyim, in that halacha in Perigirav halacha Tezayin Avo Bali Achochmo Utmime Hadas Yeedu B'Rayis Grois Shekolelu Advorim She'osra Torah Eino Einom Divrei Chochmo Elatol Vehevel Shenimshchu Bohen Chasre Adas V'Notshu Kol Dalke Emes B'Glolim B'Bnei Zera Matera Shezira Al Kol Elu Avolim Tom Tiel Mashem Elokeinu. So then maybe what Tom Tia, just let's get started. Tom Tia Mashem Elokeinu is to not to mishtatev that there's another bria in the world that has koiches, because all this is based. All these things are based. There's another koyach, and that's a tom tia. So, because the Ramban learns the tom tia is about the future. Maybe the tom tia is you should be completely what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, maybe. This, you can take it or leave it. Maybe it's true or maybe it's not, okay? I'm interested, you think about it, let me know what you think. I'm interested more in the word tohu. Hevel means ridiculous. Tohu sounds almost like chaos. Tohu, vovo, whatever tohu means, rekod, what does that to do with anything? So I thought, maybe I'm wrong, is the Rambam is referring to the posuk. V'lo yisasuru ki achrei hatohu asher lo yu'ilu v'lo yatzilu ki tohu heimo. The Shmuel Aleph, Perek Yud Beis, Pasuk Chaval. There's something tohu that's being referred to in the posuk. And the Targum Yonason before Shetohu hu inyan avodah zarah. V'sistun mibosa pulchanei v'lo yisifluchu leta'avosa di'inon. And this is tohu. And maybe then what the Ram says, Einam divrei chochma ele tohu v'hevel. And the Rambam again is being merames that what the Kadmonim wanted was avodah zarah. And they wanted mechazik avodah zarah. So then again, he's saying that in the original Tos of avodah zarah, in the Kadmonim, in the Shoresh or the Ika avodah zarah, it includes Kesem, Mo'inen, etc. It's amazing if it's true. So then, but the important thing is that it's important, but it's also odd that the Rambam goes out of his way to stress that Kesem is something natural, but the Torah asked it because of its relationship to avodah zarah, and that they were miyaches it to avodah zarah for the koiches and kochavim. But there's no here. True that he put together the list of the mitzvahs which he's talking about avodah zarah, but you don't get the impression reading this there's anything to do with avodah zarah. That's what we have. See, once you accept this, then you can either go and do the permutation of the chinuch or whatever you like, because the chinuch, when he's explaining the Rambam here in this mitzvah, he comes and says something which is completely out of the blue a priori. Maybe in context of what we're talking about, you can understand it, at least from the reference of Pirush Mishnayis and what he says in Nigeres, and in the Bukhim, he says in Mitzvah Tovkuf Yud, when he's talking about Kaisein, and he quotes the Rambam, and he says, Pirushli Pirusha, Kloima, Shemizboidedim b'machshavtam, they go into meditation. V'krovim kol hakavona, v'chol hahergesh elahem, al oiso inyan sheyachbetzu l'das. Umitoich his boidedus v'akvius hachozok v'shpat pashtus kol hamachshava mikol inyone oilam hagufoni tis'arev nafshom im haruchanim hakoltim hoasidois hakroivois hakoltim hasidis hakroivim kiyadua biyat chachamim, and this is shade. And this, the Ram Moses in the book of the shade and tell you the future. In Chelik Gimel Perek Mem Vav, B'daki Adam hoye tomei me'oid b'beini atzavo v'yadaz v'lochim choshvim shuhu mozen l'hashedim v'she'ochel oisem v'she'ochlu v'ha'ishtate v'mashedim v'yavohu v'yodiu es hasidus. It's true that Shadim might tell you the Hasidus, but there's no mention in the Rambam there's anything to do with Shadim over here. The Kaisim. So I would have said not like that. I would have said that it's more so to that they will miyachis it to the Kochovim, but it really is not true. So in terms of this, and I think I mentioned last week, the Rama would learn that when the Perk says, Kiato bo el eretz el haaretz asher Hashem elokecha noisei lecho leisumo lasis k'toevus hagoyim moeim lo yimotze b'chol maviv b'noi ubitoi bo'esh koisim ksomim b'noi ne'menachesh u'machashev b'choi v'chovi u'v'yidoyin v'dor shalom ezim ki to'avas Hashem k'lo yisrael. Because all of them are kosher to avodah zarah, and it doesn't mention b'chukosayim because only hachokah me avodah zarah, and the Ramban the Shita say that there's no element of to'eva in Gilu Asidus. Says that the to'eva in the pasuk is only a piroiv. Kakos yidaba aruba, ki amo'enein, v'amechan nachesh, ein a to'eva. Okay, now, next. V'oiva alav zeh, v'yaseh me'achas me'elu ha'pu'ulois chayiv malchus. Kloima, he does any single one of them, he's chayiv malchus. Kloima, mi shia koisem v'yagid l'bnei odom v'poyel she'yifol oisai. See, he's chayiv malchus. And it's a separate lav. That's the lav here of koisem. Correct? That's a lav of koisem. And what's the pasuk? The pasuk is, he says, V'chol mi sheyase achas me'elu ha'pulos v'zulason mima sheyelech b'dalkon yikol koisem amu yisale lo yimotze b'cho b'hu with various a list and koisem some, and it's also on the list, and therefore it's a separate law. I mean, mitzvahs. So here we have a very perplexing problem. Because if the Rambam had been like the Ramban, it's beautiful. Because when the Torah says lo and has a list of many things, what does it say? It says like this: Lo yimotze b'cho mavi b'no bito v'eish kaisem ksomim ma'oinei u'menachesh u'mechashev b'cho v'chove v'sholo v'yidayni v'derish ha'lameisim. So the Ramban Shita in general is that if the Torah says lo, and you have a long list of things that are mentioned after the lo, each one on the list is a separate lav. Like al toichlu mimenu no ubosha buvusham amayim mekol pesach. According to Ramban, there's a lav of no and the lav of mevusho. Yosam ve'amona loisanu is the loisanu goes on Yosam, loisanu goes on almona. The problem is the Ram says in Mitzvas, Loisa say Kufchapei, Shalolecho Sara Pesach no Mavusho, Shenema Turklu Menu no Mavusho. Because as the Ram says very clearly in Shirish Test, that since it's mentioned in one lav, it's one lav. And there's one lav to do many different things. So if you do no mavusho, you only chayiv one malchus. So why does the Rambam take this pasuk? Lo, yimotzi b'cho, mavi b'no, b'ito l'eish, koisim som. So the whole list of what he says, lo yimotzi b'cho, mavi b'no, b'ito l'eish, koisim somim, ma'inei u'menachesh, u'mechashev, b'choy b'chov v'sholo v'yidayni, v'derish ha'lameisim. Each one's a separate lav according to the Rambam. How does it happen? It's against Shurish Chi. Shurish Chi says the minyan of mitzvahs is the minyan of the time the Torah says lo, or al, or pen. So the truth is, in Shurish Chi, the Ram himself asked this question and gives an answer. V'alzeh hekesh b'atzmoi, oimer shemamo yis'ale lo yimotzi b'cho mavi b'noi ubita bo'esh kaisem ksomim mo'enim menachesh u'machashi b'cho b'chov b'shol v'yadoni b'derish ha'lameisim ki kol eila me'elu hatisha dvorim ha'menuyim hu lav b'fnei atzmo. It's a chestira to everything that he said in Shurish Chi, and it's like the Ramban. So he says, "V'oraya al ze oimrei b'emsa mo'inen u'menachesh." In the middle of this list, it has mo'inen menachesh. Ukva hizboye b'chol echod mishneim la b'fnei atzmo v'omo lo yisenachashu v'lo yisoinenu. And that's mefurish in Pashas Kedushim separate lavin. So I could have said that Ma'oinin and Machash is a separate lav because the Torah has separate lav. But the rest remain one lav. Comes the Rambam and says the following. It's an amazing story. He says, Ukmo shema'oinin u'menachesh yotzu l'chalek v'zocha oisam be'emsa, even though the separate lav and they mentioned in the middle, kein kol ma shelifneim v'achreim k'mo ma'oinin u'menachesh. They are like Moed Menash Kamo should be alnu Belechem Makoli V'Kamo. That the word Leisechel Belechem Makoli V'Kamo Leisechel Etzem Hayom Hazeh. So Lechem Makoli V'Kamo becomes three separate lavim. The Matiki Hashmor said it. Or they said separate Malchus. It's an amazing swallow that if the Torah is Moitzi Min HaKlal, part of those in the regime of the Lavin, everyone becomes a separate lav. And therefore, there's a separate lav called Koisim Ksum. The Rambam writes this in short in Mishnah Torah, Perek Yud Ches Halacha Gimel. Harinemo lo yimotzi b'chol mavir b'no bitoy bo'esh Koisim Ksomim. V'afa pi shekolo kol inyonim b'lav echod. It should have been one lav. Even though it's separate inyonim, since it's one lav, it should have been one lav. Harei cholak oisam b'lav v'macheru v'yoma lo shenachashu v'lo yisoinenu. Melamed shekol echod mehen b'lav b'fnei atzmoi v'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh. So it is true that the Ram says this both in Shurish Tes and in Mishnah Torah, and it reflects itself over here. I think that the source of the Rambam might be Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin. Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin, Perek Zayin Halacha Hey. Omer of Gun Bachir, Tanu of Yishmor, Cain, Lo Shenachashu, Lo Yisoinenu, Lo Anichush, Vo'inon B'chlal Hoyu, V'yotzim Min HaKlal, Lach Loik Al HaKlal. So the Pnei Moshe Zol Nichush V'Inon B'chlal, Mechashvim Hoyu, V'lo Moyotzu Min HaKlal, Lach Loik Al HaKlal, Lelame Chilukei Lavim Al HaKlal, Kuloi Ulechayev Akol Achas Achas B'fnei Atzmut K'Rechoshev Koisim Ksomim B'chulei. So basically, at least the way Pnei Moshe learns, you have to decide, look at Yerushalmi yourself. The Yerushalmi is mefurish like the Rambam. That you don't say only those which were yotzim HaKlal, but everything becomes separate lav. Now, you can flip this around, because basically, Koisim Ksomim and Ma'onein are awakening the Koyach HaDimyon as the Ram says over here, where it's the Chayzik Sov, how it works. So I would have said that they're Inyan Echod, that they're just different pulas that you owe the Koyach HaDimyon, and to say Agodas Asidus. And L'cheira, there should have been one lav, because the Inyan Echod, because the general rule, it's Hagodas Asidus, Derech Oirus Koyach HaDimyon. So why is the two separate asos minyan amin lo asol achas? And Glam says in general, minyan mitzvos are minyan inyonim. So I could have imagined that since the Torah itself, at least the way we learned before, goes out of its way to mechalek the lavim, so that itself makes them separate lavim. Because the Torah puts the whole list and every single one's a separate lav. If that's correct, I'm not sure that's correct, then the overriding principle, or the overarching principle of minyan mitzvah is not in Yonei Torah. In Yonei Torah keveya, but there could be an overarching principle that the Torah is mechalek them, even though it's basically in echod, it still would be two separate mitzvahs, which would be an amazing thing. And then, if that's correct, you could have an answer to tefillin. Why tefillin, even though the Ramban, maybe the Ram agrees that there's one inyan, Teres Hashem, Teres Mantia, Teres Hashem B'ficha. However, they could be two separate mitzvahs. The Matiki Hashmur says, Mefurish in the Gemara Menachos, that tefillin Shiyad and tefillin Shorosh are two separate mitzvahs. They're called Beis Mitzvahs. So since the Matiki Hashmur of a Kabbalah, that overrides the principle of a Yonei Torah. And maybe that's correct. It's something to be thought. It's something to think about very seriously, I think. Now, let's continue. We do any one of these pulos. Kloima, mishi yakoisem, v'yagi l'bnei odom, v'poel, sheyifalo isai. That the Ram says also in the Chazon the Zohar, our kaisim atzim or samaisa, mikol elu kiyetze behen loike. So even though the Ram is no gayet is malchus, but it's a svara that if you do your over a lav, you do a maisa, and there is a maisa, you chay malchus. And that we mentioned, I think, last week, that the lav consists of two things: the awakening of the koyach adimyon and the agodas hasidus. And even though the maisa is only in the awakening of the koyach, even though the agodas hasidus might not be considered maisa, that's enough to be chayim malchus. And we know that these ma'asim which are done are part of the etzemisa, as we know from the Sefer, which Shalom quotes, Ezel kaisem ze ha'oiches makloi, v'yoime im elech or im ain't lo elech. So the chayre is there's to awaken the chefsa from kaisem is the pu'ula plus the saying. So the interesting thing is this then is very similar to Avos Hashem. If you remember the Rambam in Mitzvah Gimel of Avos Hashem, he says the mitzvah is to be mizboinei yisivor lov yis'aleh v'zeh shenizboinei v'naskil mitzvoisav u'puloisav ad shenasigeu v'nisnaeg v'nisaneg v'asagosoi tachlis hatainug v'zois I avo amuchuyeves. So I think the Ram he does Pula X, this boidinus, and this boidinus, and that brings him to Avo. Here he does Pula X, which is to me'ere the koyach hadimyon or the koich ashora, and that helps him to say tell the future. And it means that the pula before is also part of the Isa or the mitzvah. And the other Ram says that the mitzvah is of Avos Hashem is deis, because there's boidinus. But you're certainly not makayim the mitzvah unless you have the ava, nesegeu. And here also, don't violate the ashola, even though you're waking the koyach hadim. If you don't tell the asilas, you don't have the ashola. Now, let's read some words here again. Okay. Anyone, the whole aforementioned has a whole list number before. Lo mi sheyisha l'koisem. She says that the chiyuv malchus is on the koisem, not on the shoyl l'koisem. But he says that there's some richok, there's some problem over here. Maguna me'oid. So the question is, what's he saying? Is the shayla to the koisem also midaraisa? And it's really violent in the lam? But for some reason, a chayiv malchus, or midaraisa is tachmut, it's only Yisad Rabbanan. So the question is, why does it get malchus? Because it's not the ikoisa, or because he's not the moin, he's not the ikoisa, or he doesn't get malchus because it's drabonim. And it's really, if it's drabonim, a priori, there's no minyan mitzvahs. It's true that I'm sometimes mentioned drabonim, but the rule of thumb is that everything is deraisa, unless proven otherwise. Now, you could have had a mixus raya that the Rambam doesn't quote it in terms of the Isa. The Rambam says just there's no malchus. If there's no Isa, the Reis and Kaisem, in the Shoyl of Kaisem, you should have phrased it differently, a priori. It's not a great raya to say that. Maybe a sad. Now, let's look at Mishnah Torah. The Rambam has a phrase, also liksoim, v'lish ol l'kaisem. So, would anyone in the right mind, I'll read you the phrase, I'll show you the context, put together an Isa derais and Isa rabon and say, also liksoim, v'lish ol l'kaisem. That it's also, one's a derais and one's a rabon. If it's also, it's both a derais or it's both a rabon. But to put apples and bananas, that doesn't make any sense. I'll read you the Rambam in Perek Yirav v'lo Chazayin. Also liksoim v'lisho l'koisem el shashoy l'koisem makanese makas madus. Aval koisem atzmoi imosa ma'ase mikol elu ki yetze bohen loike. Shenem lo imotze b'chor ma'avi b'no v'goyme koisem kso. So I would have said that from this, that the Isa koisem of Shoyl Kaisem is a deraisa. I found that the Marshal in Tshuva has this view. Shal Tshuva is Marshal Simin Gimel. Avo b'divrei Rambam lo diktek yofe. The Hokosa b'perek Yud Aleph d'avodah zora halocha zayin. Also liksoim v'lisho l'kaisem. אלא שהשואל מקריס מקזמנס מקריסים שריסים מייסה לא יקנויסה וכולי על כל. הרי לכל להדיה שסבב ששניהם בלאו, אלא מפני שאין בו מייסה מקנויסה מקזמנס כמו שכוסף באויסי פרק גבי שואל אויב. He says that basically it evens the Ikaisa, it's just an aim by Maisa. Whatever it is, but he has this deal that it says also together that it's Isa Taraisa, and he's Chovik Tumas Adeshin in Psokim, Simetzarivov, that the Tumas Adeshin holds that the Isa Shayla is only be over Yedoni. Will be case of mine. That Boris Melch also disagrees and seems to say it's the Rabban. I'm not sure the Ram seems to say it's the Reisa. What can I tell you? Certainly in Mishnah Torah, here, I would say it's Dvorim Noitim, but I can't, I hear, I can't say for sure. Now, here is interesting. Have a shela kaisim maguna ma'id, and Kapach says matuav ma'id. And if you take the word matuav and you accept my footnote, that what I suggested before, that the Ram Shita is that the Torah calls it toeva, although that's the Isa. The Chefser Yisrael Toeva, and it's on all of them. So if he calls She'ela Toeva, it's certainly B'chal Lav, because the Lav is a Lav. That everything, the Lav, the Torah said everything just Toeva over here. That's what I would suggest. Now let's continue. Ukfa hispavu mishpatei mitzvazo v'mekoimos migmor Sanhedrin. So I saw Frank who says Samachem and Aleph, and v'teisves Shabbos, which is Teseft in Shabbos, and Frank says Perek Zayin Perek Ches. And the Sifri, and there it's in Sheftim Piska Kufayna. So I'm confused. I don't know. I didn't find this discussion of the Ashara of Kesem in the Gemara Sanhedrin, nor did I find a discussion in the Teseft in Shabbos. Yeah, there's a long discussion with Dr. Emori, but not about Kesem. So I'm not sure what the Rambam says over here and what he means. Okay. So here. Now, to start, I'm not going to get very far. HaMitzvos 2 ו-30 היא שהזהירנו מעשות המעשים בבחירה ממשפטי הכוכבים. In Kapach, it's probably better translated, Al Pi B'chiras Ha'Itztagninus. We cannot, and if astrology says that this is good, and you do it because he says it, or he says it's bad, and you refrain to do it because he says it, that is the law. Me'asais ha'ma'asim b'bchiras mishpatei akrichov. והוא שנאמר, הוא שנאמר, זה היום טוב למעשה הפלוני ונוחים לעשו איסר, רוי לעשו איסר, רוצה לעשו איסר, וזה היה מגונה. And here, it's translated as lo latzui. Boy, amase aploni, v'nachik me'asa iser, v'nimna me'asa iser, something like that. V'lasa iser. That's a couple says, I think. V'nimna me'asa iser. Good. Now, the word yoim over here, and this is something we'll have to talk about more about Richos, is lav dafka. Yoim means it just happened to be mentioned. It's a period of time. It could be a day, it could be a month, it could be a year. And therefore the Ram writes the word ace, any period of time, ayin sof. Sheyoim ha'ace haplonis teva, va'oina haplonis ra'a. And Hilchos Avodah Zarah. Ezo ma'oinen, Perek Yud Aleph Halach Ches, Ezo ma'oinen, elu nois ne'itim, she'oimim b'stagninus, yoim ploni tev, yoim ploni ra, yoim ploni roi lasois boi malacha. Lasois boi malacha plonis. Shana ploni, or chodesh ploni, ra l'dova ploni. So it's the month, the day, and the year. So I would have said that these, the month, the day of the year, are periods of time in astronomy, and I saw them reflect stuff in astrology. There's the time, the rotation of the Earth on its axis, whichever way we want to look at it, the 24-hour period. You have the moon having one rotation around the Earth in whichever way you want to call it or look at it. It's, or the whatever, is a month. And the year, you see, the year becomes interesting because we have to ask ourselves, and we have to think about what year we're talking about. Because they're talking about astrology, and l'cheira, you're talking about the sidereal year, which is the when the Earth comes to the same point in its orbit that it's, you know, in a certain constellation or certain or in the same place in space. It's not the tropical year, which there's about 21 difference, 20 minutes, 21 minutes, not sure, I don't remember exactly, difference, and that's what causes the seasons. And l'cheira, it's not the luach, the Jewish calendar, because that is trying to have this, the lunar months into the solar, to make a solar year, but each year is not a solar year. And I would assume that astrology is based on the solar year, at least we're talking about its relation to the year, not on the calendar Luach Ivri, but you know, I don't know. Okay, the Met Hashem will pick up next week.